Good morning and welcome to this webinar on occupational health and safety management or workplace safety and health, or health and safety, however it's said in your particular part of the world. I'm using occupational health and safety because that is the term used in the ISO 45001 standard, but it applies equally to health and safety management across the board. My name is David Ashton. I'm Principal Consultant with Corporate Supremacy. I've also been a Business Station advisor since 2014, providing a range of advice and guidance and services to businesses in the areas mentioned there on the slide. So do a lot of work in helping businesses with management systems and procedures and business planning and risk and compliance. Tenders and grants, including training programs, and also in procurement and contract management. So my clients across the board, I've worked in property, construction, mining services and state and local government, and my clients are across the board in those industries, including not-for-profit organisations, which I sit on a not-for-profit board, and also a government board as a ministerial appointment. So that's some information about me if you wish to avail yourself of my services. Business Station, who is the facilitator of the Australian Small Business Advisory Service, and these workshops and webinars which I'm hosting on their behalf. They operate out of Western Australia, Northern Territory and Queensland, and they provide the training services and the one-to-one advisories and various business services and support. So take advantage of Business Station and what it can offer you. You can get up to 24 hours of free or low-cost access to an advisor or webinars or workshops. For any aspect of your business, whether it be social media, marketing, finance, tenders and business grants, which I do. So please do take advantage of those services. And then the Australian Small Business Advisory Service Digital Solutions Program, aimed at small, medium businesses. Low cost, high quality advice on a range of business management issues, so websites, social media, software, security, and general advice. So I operate in the general advisory session and also online security and data privacy. So we can as I said, take advantage of those services. So we're going to be talking about occupational health and safety. I'm not talking at it so much from a legal perspective. Obviously, there's the various workplace health and safety acts across Australia. I'm looking at it from a management point of view, implementing policies and procedures to ensure you have a safe workplace, and also you're complying with those various legislation and regulations that you have to comply with. So I'm looking at you as a business owner and manager and saying, well, what sort of policies, procedures, work instructions, safe operating procedures and the like that you can put in place that are going to do two things, obviously, a number of things: create that safe work environment for your workers, allow you to develop a system that is consistent with the ISO 45001 standard that will allow you to get certification for that, and also fulfill your various compliance obligations. So really that's really the purpose of having an occupational health and safety management system, regardless of your size. The minute you start bringing on workers or even contractors and consultants, you need to have a workplace health and safety system in place. So what is the purpose of it? Health and safe workplace, prevent work-related injury, ill health, and continually improve your OHS performance. So you need to manage your risks and opportunities. You need to satisfy your compliance obligations. And I also believe that having good systems and procedures will help with business growth. And I do some work with tenders and business grants, and the questions that you get asked are around how you manage your business. And one of those questions is occupational health and safety. For example, local government tenders will invariably have quite a comprehensive survey on your safety and health management practices that you need to complete, and you need to provide evidence that you have a policy and procedures and various aspects of safety management. So the complexity of your safety management system, well, that's really going to depend on the size of your business. Obviously, if you've got 2 or 3 staff, then you need a system to manage that internally. If you've got 10 to 15 staff, then there's more rigor involved. So really the complexity of your system is going to depend on your organisational context. We'll talk about that a bit later. So the size of your business, the location, the culture, the legal environment, the scope of the system, so the level of application. If you've got multiple sites, obviously you're going to need to roll it out across multiple sites, so that's going to create an element of complexity. The nature of the business, so what industry that you're working in. Obviously the safety requirements for a business in the construction industry are going to be a lot greater than a business like mine, a consulting business. So it really depends on the nature of your business, and then that will trigger the extent of compliance obligations that you have. So, but even if you are a small business, or even a consulting business like mine, you may be required to go on to in client premises, construction sites, or whatever. So you need to be across not only your client safety management system, but you also need to have your own procedures in place as well, and your own standards around the level of safety that you would expect as well. So the standard is based on, in terms of the management approach, the plan, do, check, act cycle. So you need to plan your system, look at your hazards, your risks and your opportunities, determine what they are, implement processes to manage those sorts of things. You need to continually monitor the performance of your management system and measure the success of that against the objectives and the various activities and processes that you put in place. And you need to continuously improve it to achieve the outcomes that you want. As your business grows, as new compliance obligations come into train, as new services or products that you might be providing, then you need to continually review, monitor and improve your safety management system to suit the circumstances in which you're operating. Don't be a slave to the policies and procedures. They need to be relevant to your business, and they need to grow in support of your business growth. Remember, it's a supportive system, not something that's going to bog you down. And it's not this thing out here that you've got to comply with. It's the way that you do business. So you can see there the diagram around the plan, do, act cycle. So looking at you can see there the different components of that. So the planning stage, setting up your management, your teams, your safety management committees, doing all your analysis and the like. Then the doing, which is the implementation, so training of staff, communication, change management and the like, and then your checking, so your measurement, your assessment, your analysis, and then acting on all that, so management review, project revision and the like. So you can see that cycle of activity. So in terms of the standard, ISO 45001, the official title of it is occupational health and safety management systems requirements with guidance for use. You can purchase these standards, and the structure of this is similar to quality and environment, and I run some workshops and webinars on those standards as well. But the first three components of the introductory statement, so the scope of the standard, the references where it references other documents and like, and the terms and definitions, that sort of sets the scene. And then the requirements are the next. So these are the things that you have to do. These are the things that you're going to be assessed on if you're looking to get your ISO certification. So you need to identify the context of the organisation, set in place procedures around management commitment and participation of your staff. They use the term worker in throughout the standard. So management needs to show commitment, but workers also need to have an opportunity to participate in the development of the system and ongoing review and implementation. You need to plan it. You need to provide the support for it. You need to, the operational side is the doing part, how you're actually going to implement it, and then there's that performance evaluation and continuous improvement. So you can see the plan, do, act, check, act cycle operating in the structure of the standard. So the first part of the requirements is the organisational context. So this is the environment in which you operate, both internal and external, and also identifying what they call interested parties are. They're your stakeholders, because they're going to be impacted by this now. So you need to understand both the internal and external environment that you operate. You need to understand what the needs and expectations of your workers and your interested parties are. So, what are the expectations of your staff? They want to come to work, they want to be safe, they want to make sure that their workplace is a safe and healthy place to work. Interested parties, they're your clients, your suppliers, all the other businesses that you engage with to deliver your services or products, insurance companies and the like. You need to determine the scope of the safety management system. So that when we talk about scope, we're talking about the extent to which it will apply throughout your organisation. So, it may only apply to one component of it or one project. It may apply across multiple sites. And the like. So that's what you need to determine in terms of the scope of the system. So when determining the scope, you need to look at the internal and external environment. You need to take into account the requirements of interested parties, and also you need to take into account the actual work-related activities that are performed in the organisation. And then you need to, as part of the management system, you need to implement the policies and procedures and work instructions and the like, and maintain those, review them, continually improve those systems. So in terms of, if we look at the organisational context, so if we look at external issues, these are the things that are going to have an impact on your business. So I mentioned some of these earlier: cultural factors, social, political, legal, financial impact on the market, introduction of new competitors, knowledge on products, key drivers and trends, external relationships, and any changes. So it's looking at your external environment and all the factors that are going to have an impact on your business. Internal issues, so your governance arrangements, codes of conduct and the like for staff, looking at your your policies, procedures, and your various standards, work instructions. So not just in terms of safety, but other policies and procedures that you may have. What sort of resources that you have within your business, so human and other, knowledge and competence of your staff, your information management. So that's your record keeping and document control. If you're introducing new products or services. What's your relationship with workers, the work time and conditions. So that's, what times and days of the week are you a 24-hour operation, or 7-day a week, or just 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. And the work conditions that you're in. Are you in an office, a factory, in a warehouse, distribution centre, the type, whatever the nature of the workplace is, and then other any changes in any of those will obviously cause you to review your organisational context. So Section 5 of the standard talks about leadership and worker participation. So leadership is about top management, or the senior management, or you as the business owner. You need to demonstrate leadership and commitment to this, so by taking overall responsibility and accountability for preventing workplace injury and ill health. You need to ensure that policies and procedures are developed and implemented, and you need to ensure that the OHS is integrated into the whole operation of the organisation. As I mentioned earlier, it's not this thing that sits out here that you just have to comply with. It is actually the way that you do business, and it's integrated across the board. So, and then you need to review everything as well. So, be on top of the system, management review, improvement, change management, and the like, putting in place authorisation, consultation, and the like. So developing roles and responsibilities to various positions, in terms of job descriptions and contracts of employment. Make sure you include statements around, working to the policies and procedures of the organisation and understanding safety and health in the workplace. And you need to communicate that, and you also need to establish and implement and maintain the process for consultation and participation of workers. And that's a big component of it, is that your workforce does have a right to participate in the development of the system and to be consulted on any aspects of it, and you need to set up mechanisms to do that. So a safety committee, toolbox meetings, all those sorts of things. So the consultation side of it is very important. So and as I said, setting up the mechanisms to do that. So one thing that you must have is to establish develop a policy. So a policy is a statement of intent. This is what we wish to achieve, and then hanging off those are procedures and work instructions that, if implemented correctly, will allow you to achieve the intent of your policy. So contained within your OHS policy, you need to have a commitment to providing a safe and healthy work environment. You need to fulfil your compliance obligations, eliminate workplace hazards, reduce risks. You need to have a commitment that you're going to continuously improve the statement, and consultation and participation of workers and their representatives. So the policy needs to specify that you're going to do these things, and it must be documented. So it needs to be, you generally see these things as a one-page statement. They need to be communicated. So you need to, you might include a copy of the policy in the contract of employment, or as a document as part of the induction process. Some businesses display these things in their front foyer on their website. it must be relevant to the organisation and appropriate. So don't just take a download someone else's policy from the website, from the internet, and just apply it as is to your business, because it may not be relevant to your business. So you need to build it from the ground up, having looked at your internal and external environment, your organisational context, interested parties, and the like. So then we need to get onto the planning stage of it. So this is when you sit out and consider, the issues, around context, interested parties, the scope of your management system, and the like. You need to assess the risks, OHS risks, but other organisational risks that may impact the system. You need to look at your opportunities, and again, OHS opportunities, but also other opportunities for improvement in OHS. And you also need to determine the legal environment in which you operate. So what are your legal compliance obligations, say workplace health and safety legislation and other requirements, standards. So, say personal protective equipment, you've got to purchase PPE that's consistent with Australian standards for that particular product. Looking at other contractual requirements as well, so contracts that you may have with suppliers or suppliers or other clients in terms of OHS requirements. And you incorporate these in various policies and procedures. So, for example, procurement policies and procedures, you might include provision in there around, only purchasing products that meet certain safety standards and the like. So that's how you can assist in achieving that. So as part of all this, plan actions to address risks and opportunities, fulfill your legal and other obligations, respond to emergencies, integrated into other business processes, and evaluate the effectiveness of the actions. So you need to set objectives. So these are the things that you want to achieve in safety. So things like, zero lost injury time, or, zero workplace incidences, that type of thing. So you need to, set them such that they're consistent with the policy. You need to be able to measure them. So, number of days without a safety incident, or number of hours of lost time, or zero lost time. They need to be applicable to the organisation, so don't just grab someone else's objectives and apply them to yours. The system needs to be built from the bottom up. Look at what you're doing. Look at what you do now in the context of the requirements of the standard. And you're probably about 50 to 60% there. So if you're already doing something that's consistent with the standard, document that, and that becomes your procedure. You're not having to make any change. Look for where you can make some improvements, but by and large, you're fulfilling the requirements of the standard. Then you look at, you do that gap analysis and say, well, what else do we need to implement to ensure that we're meeting the requirements of the standard and delivering that safe work environment? So that's what you do when we talk about applicable to the organisation. Your objectives need to be applicable to you, having gone through that process. You need to monitor them. So, regular review of, safety implementation against the objectives. So, and then you need to communicate that. So, communicate that to your staff, your suppliers, interested parties, used for the purpose of management review. And, where appropriate, you update those objectives. So, put in place an annual review of your objectives, or, come the end of the financial year, you start looking at setting objectives for the next financial year. So the next part is putting in place, once you've sort of planned the system and you've set up your your policies and your procedures and the like, you need to now put about the support framework to give effect to that, providing support to your management, providing support to your staff. So understanding what resources could be, bringing on either an external consultant or an internal employee, a safety manager to help implement the system and do all the things to make sure it keeps on track. You need to look at your competency of your employees in safety. So do you need to provide training for them in safety? If you're setting up a safety committee of representatives, staff representatives and management representatives, you need to provide training of your staff in how to be a safety representative and work on that committee. So you need to put in place mechanisms to ensure that workers are aware of the safety management system. So how do you do that? Well, bringing on new staff through their induction process, you would have a section there on the OHS. Notice board in the kitchen or staff room. If you've got an intranet, a page on your internal intranet. Toolbox meetings, staff meetings, notices on notice boards, all those sort of things help in communicating the requirements of the OHS to your staff and interested parties. So you need to maintain good documentation, so the importance of record keeping and document control. So you need to have written policies, procedures, work instructions to assist in implementation. It might help to develop some templates and forms that your staff fill out, and those forms are, obviously a record that a certain action has been taken, but also evidence that you've implemented the system, because it's these things, if you're going to be audited for the purpose of certification and ongoing surveillance, the auditor is going to look to see if you've got, the appropriate documentation as required by the standards, say an OHS policy, procedures, work instructions, procedures around record keeping and document control, legal, a register of your compliance obligations, an outline of your objectives. These are the sort of documents that they're going to want to see. So you need to provide evidence that you've got the documentation, but then you also need to provide evidence of implementation, and developing some simple templates and forms can help with that. So the documentation also needs to have identifying features. So it could be a policy number or a procedure number, PRO 001, 002 and the like. It needs to have consistent formatting. So consistent with your style guide, and it needs to have a review and approval mechanism. So generally you see down the bottom of these documents, approved by such and such on such and such a date, and next review date, March or May 2022 or something like that. So you also need to have a mechanism for controlling documented information, so distribution, access, retrieval and use, storage and preservation, control of changes, so version control, so you might see, version 1, 2, 3 or the like, and then procedures around retention and disposal. So this is your information management from a, managing corporate information, but also security of information. And I'm running a webinar on Friday about information management and privacy and security and the like from a management perspective. So then the operational side of it is actually really the implementation. So you've set up the policies and procedures and work instructions. You've put in place a support mechanism. to do that? Well, going back further, you set the organisational context, you've determined the leadership and worker participation arrangements, you've developed your policy, you've planned and set up your processes, policies, procedures, work instructions. You've determined the level of resources that you're going to need to commit to implementing and managing this. And then we now get to the actual doing part, so the operational side of it. So continually plan and make sure, if you're bringing changes or whatever, implement, control and maintain processes to obviously meet the requirements of the OHSMS, eliminate hazards, reduce risks, control procurement of goods and services to ensure conformity. So I touched on that earlier about making sure that your suppliers have proper safety systems in place. If you're engaging contractors, or you're providing procuring goods as well, making sure that if it's safety PPE that you're buying, that it meets relevant Australian standards, for example. So you need to ensure that contractors and their workers conform to your safety system. You can't outsource that. You've got to be in control of your outsourced functions. You're liable if someone has an accident on your workplace, whether they're an employee or not. But you need to communicate your expectations around safety and health to your suppliers as well. So looking at your contract, your contracts that you put in place with your third parties. And you need to respond to potential emergency situations. So you'll have to develop an emergency management plan, identify all the emergencies that are likely to happen in your business. Fire, a whole range of stuff. Bomb threat, electrical hazards. Even dealing with a disgruntled customer at the front counter. Medical situations, all those types of emergencies that are likely to arise. You need to identify them and put in place strategies to manage them. And then, as part of the operation, this constant management review that we talk about, you need to make changes to the system in response to changes in the workplace, your compliance obligations. Over time, you improve your knowledge and information about safety, and developments in knowledge and technology as well. So, be on top of any changes. Subscribe to, email newsletters from organisations like WorkSafe and the like, that will send you out regular updates on safety issues, any changes to standards or legislation. So participate in those forums and be on top of information. And take action to mitigate any adverse effects as well. That's important. So it's all about identifying prospective potential hazards and putting in place strategies to make sure that they don't actually realise. So the type of documentation that you're going to need is you're going to need an OHS policy. You're going to need a procedure manual, so workplace procedures, safe work procedures. You're going to have record keeping and document control procedures, procurement and contract management, emergency preparedness and response. So these are actual documents that an auditor is going to want to see in your business. You need to have an internal audit plan. So you'll have to appoint someone to be an internal auditor, and there's training that you can do in that. So I'm a qualified, I've done a diploma of quality auditing in quality, environment, safety and information management. So I'm all qualified to audit those 4 management systems. So appoint someone to undertake those internal audits. You need a continuous improvement plan. So how you're going to, processes to improve the system? How do you solicit feedback from staff and interested parties? How you manage that? Calibration of equipment. So if you work in an industry where you use measuring equipment, so scales, for example, you need to calibrate them to ensure that they're actually giving the correct measurement. So you need a procedure around that. Looking at, they talk, compliance isn't a word that's used. It's called non-conformity. So if you're doing something that's inconsistent with a procedure, then you're non-conforming against that procedure. So you need to have procedures around identifying non-conformance and managing that, and then putting in place corrective action. So the corrective action is you've identified a non-conformance. What action are you going to take to correct the non-conformance? But then also looking at what action you're going to put in place to make sure that that non-conformity doesn't happen again. So that's your preventative actions as well. So it could be, corrective action could be, for example, in terms of, say, a construction site, your preventative action is maybe putting some signage up for safety barriers and the like. And that, in terms of that side of it, there's an example of making sure something doesn't happen again. But wherever something does go wrong, you need to correct the problem straight away. So it could be removing people from site or the like. So do that type of thing, but don't fix the problem, but then put in place a mechanism to make sure the problem doesn't arrive again. And then your management review. So this is all part of your continuous improvement. So looking at how you can constantly improve the system, reviewing performance against objectives, setting new objectives at the start of each year, and then just a mechanism to communicate and engage with your workers on any changes to the system. So performance evaluation. So this is sort of getting down to the final stages of that plan, do, check, act cycle. So as part management, safety representatives need to constantly monitor the performance of the system against its objectives. You need to measure it to make sure that it's meeting those objectives. Analyze data, so incidences, accidents, any issues that arise. You need to evaluate why things are happening, and evaluate the extent to which your compliance obligations have been met. So, that monitoring, measurement, analysing, evaluating is important, so that you're constantly looking at your system. Is it meeting the requirements? Is it providing for a safe and healthy work environment? And what do you need to do to rectify any problems that arise, or continually improve the system? And ultimately, doing all these things will assist you in fulfilling your compliance obligations. So, in terms of the evaluation, conduct internal audits at planned intervals. So look at processes that you do, the importance of processes, look at past audits, and look at areas where problems have been identified in the past. So, if an incident does occur, undertake, as part of your investigation, and then undertake an audit as to what happened. But then maybe, a few months later, do another audit to make sure that any changes to procedures or whatever are actually being implemented. So review the OHSMS to ensure its continuing suitability, adequacy and effectiveness. So it's got to be relevant to your business at a given point in time. Don't be slaves to policies and procedures. If they're not working, review them. If they're not reflective of how you do business, or you've changed products or introduced new products and services, review your system to make sure it's, it's supporting you to achieve your business objectives. That's the key thing. It's got to grow with your business and be relevant to your business given at any given point in time. So communicate the outcome of reviews to workers and interested parties. So, you know, relay the information through your various communication channels. So, and then we look at, you know, all this leads to the continuous improvement, and that's a big focus of it. So as your organisation changes and grows, your OHS is improved to meet the new requirements. So it should be about enhancing performance, promoting the culture, promoting worker participation, communicating results, and, you know, maintain documented evidence of improvement. So put in place a continuous improvement procedure, mechanisms for staff to have input into changes, because they're the ones that are dealing with it day to day. They can understand that things aren't working right. So be receptive to ideas for change or new ways of doing things. You know, have the mechanism, the management review, the safety committee, toolbox meetings and like as means to solicit that feedback and work through solutions, and then maintain evidence that you've actually done that, because the auditor is going to want to see evidence of continuous improvement where you've made changes and the process that you went through to make that change. So, you know, report, investigate and take action to determine and manage incidents and non-conformities. So, you know, have that, you know, when something goes wrong, you know, you need to investigate it, you need to take immediate action to manage it, and you need to report on what it was all about, what happened, why did it happen, what you did to fix it, what you're going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again. So, yeah, when a non-conformity occurs, you need to react to it, you need to evaluate it, review existing risks, determine and implement corrective action, review effectiveness of the action undertaken, make changes to the procedures as required, and document the process that you went through. So that's the safety management system. That sort of concludes the presentation. So I've given you an overview of, you know, what's involved in setting up the standard and a safety management system in accordance with the standard. The other, we talk a lot about safety, but the other aspect of this is health. So you need to provide a healthy workplace, and that could be in terms of cultural safety, which is becoming important. You know, the culture of your workplace. You know, we talk about toxic workplaces and those sorts of things. So it's not just physical safety, and we talk a lot. You know, physical safety is, you know, barriers and PPE and you know, all the physical things that you put in place to manage safety, but it can be cultural and emotional and safety. So around, you know, creating a friendly work environment, something that's culturally safe. You've got people of different cultures and identities and all that need to be taken into consideration in the modern workplace. So we need to develop, you know, sort of that sort of you know, social, emotional safety as well, and health. You know, so the healthy workplace is making sure that people are, you know, work in a positive environment. You know, the growth of working from home, you need to have some procedures around dealing with that situation. But also some of the health measures that you can put in place include, you know, end of trip facilities, people, you know, riding their bike or walking to work, they might want to have a shower or something before they start work. Notice boards with, you know, various health messages. You know, it could be, you know, regular, if you're working in noisy environments, regular hearing tests, you know, pre-start or medicals before you start work with the organisation. They're the sort of healthy measures that you can take to ensure that continual health of your workforce. So look at the health side of it as well, not just the safety component. So in conclusion there, The successful OHS will have top management commitment. So, senior management, or you as the business owner, will be committed to putting in place a safety management system consistent with the standard. They'll have commitment from all levels and functions of the organisation. There'll be adequate communication and consultation across the workforce, and your workers will have opportunities to participate in the development and ongoing management and review of the system. You'll have effective processes in place to identify hazards, risks and opportunities. You'll be able to allocate sufficient resources for implementation, human and otherwise. It's not separate to your business, it is fully integrated into your business operations. Continuous monitoring and measurement and performance and that continual review and documented evidence of implementation. So as I said, you need to have documented policies and procedures, but you also need to have documented evidence that you've actually implemented the system and made changes and that sort of thing. And I think a successful OHS will lead to a safe and healthy workplace, fulfilment of your compliance obligations, and as I have touched on, business growth. I don't think you will win a tender for a local government if you can't, or any organisation, if you can't demonstrate robust systems and procedures around how you manage your business, and safety is a big component of that. And the last few local government tenders I've worked on for clients, they've all had to demonstrate quite a robust safety management system. So it is an important, not only a business operation requirement, but I believe a business growth requirement. You need to demonstrate that you're a safe pair of hands and you've got robust systems and procedures, whether they be quality management, quality management, environment, safety, information security, risk management, business continuity. If you don't have these systems in place, then it's going to be very hard for you to convince a prospective client of your organisational capacity, particularly from a tendering point of view, and even for accessing business grants as well, which a couple of workshops. So that's my presentation. Thank you for participating. That is my contact details. Happy to do further one-on-one sessions or workshops and webinars. I've got another webinar coming up on Friday morning on information security management. If you want to participate, just go to the Business Station website. And yeah, so thank you for your participation and good luck. And please take advantage of other Business Station services. I'll leave the screen up and the chat box open for a couple of more minutes if you would like to ask any more questions. Thanks for that and good luck with everything.